It's Reggie, the feminine gent.
Daughter, it's tea time.
Open up your mind, unleash what's inside. Just free tonight, I can take you far. Come and see about me. Come and see about me. Come and see about me. Come and see about me.
Hey everybody, this is Maya Wesley.
And I am Reggie, the feminine gent.
And today, the legend we have in store for you all is none other than the legend herself, Miss Roxanne Collins. Hey, Roxanne.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being a part.
Here.
I'm excited. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm from Houston. Well, I'm from Georgia originally, but I've lived in Houston since 1990. I've been entertaining since 1991. And that's, what else do you want to know?
Whatever you find with sharing with. Let's go ahead and get straight into the questions.
Okay, cool.
So, since you spoke about your being an entertainer, who has been your biggest inspiration as an entertainer?
I think my biggest inspiration on stage, it's an amalgamation of people. It's LaWanda Jackson, Tommy Ross, and Coffee are my three big sisters. I think everybody needs to have big sisters. A lot of people are concerned with their mothers and their family, but if you have three big sisters that really kind of guide you and that you can look up to, and all three of them, I look for different things. Tommy's more of an off stage, how she carries herself on stage, that's inspirational. Coffee's very business minded. That's very inspirational. LaWanda's very stage, about the entertainment and the art itself. That's very inspirational. So I look at the three of those. Those are my three big inspirations, my three big sisters.
Okay, two of them are my grandmothers. Hello.
Well, since you're talking about your inspiration is for a stage, what is the best way to describe your drag or your performance persona? And what is the main thing that you focus on as an entertainer?
Well, it's important to me that Roxanne Collins is on stage, that she doesn't leave the bar, she doesn't leave the venue, she doesn't leave the dressing room. That's a persona. That's not who I am. That's someone that I become. And when I've done entertaining and doing the show and doing the business of Roxanne, I can go back and be Dana. Yes. And which makes it hard to have friends in this business. It makes it hard to have relationships in this business because most people want to be friends with Roxanne. And then they get to be friends with Dana, they're like, oh. So you're not making me laugh. I'm like, well, I'm not at work. Exactly. So that happens, and so that happens in dating as well. So Roxanne is more of a persona, and I've always been inspired by the nighttime soap bitches and villainesses, and so she's very like that. Okay. And so very quick with her wit, and very over the top and outgoing and outspoken. Like a lot of things she says and does, I would never say and do, ever. Thank you for that.
Yes, I feel you on that. I feel like I'm the same with that too.
Yeah.
Completely.
And even when I first started, because I never considered myself, I didn't consider myself a drag queen because I didn't do what the other girls did. And they always kind of like looked at me like I was crazy, but I was also looking at them like they were crazy. So it was fine, but I always called myself an alternative entertainer. That was in 1991. They're like, okay, girl, you're in drag. I'm like, okay, if you say so. But I just never really fit in. And to this day, I really don't feel like I fit in. And I'm okay with that. That's kind of always been my badge of honor, the fact that I don't fit in.
I think that's why you are still so relevant. People young, they know who you are, and I think that's amazing.
I like to be approachable and down to earth and just a real person.
So what would you say that uniqueness was that made you different back then?
I came into the industry not knowing anything about it. I think that has served me, and it still serves me because I still don't know anything about it. Because like, you help me with my makeup. I don't know how to do makeup. I just get in front of the thing, and whatever happens is what happens. I never do my makeup the same twice ever because I'm not a makeup artist, and I don't feel bad for not being a makeup artist. I didn't go to school for that.
Right.
People will try to shame you in this industry. Well, you don't know how to. No, I don't. I didn't go to school for that. You're supposed to just have this gene where it's a drag gene, and you know how to sew and make clothes and put on. No, I don't know how to do any of that. But so when I started, I just wanted to make money because we were at a bar. It was called Cousins. And they had to put up a flyer on the wall. And they said, yes, they used to have flyers that you put on the actual wall. You know, you have flyers and they post them on Facebook. No, you had to put it on the wall and print it out and put it with a tag on the wall. And the flyer said they were starting a talent night. And I was sitting there with my friend. Now, mind you, I'm from Whistlerville, Georgia, so I didn't know what anything was. And they were like, I said, well, what's the talent night? So, you can make some money. I said, oh, okay, well, let's do that.
Let's do it.
And so they're like, well, you have to be in drag. I said, well, what is that?
Drag.
Didn't know what any of that was. And they said, oh, you dress up in women's clothes. And I kind of lit a side eye. And I was like, okay. And they said, you lip sync these songs and you can win some money. And so that's what I did. And so I came to the gig with a little Kroger bag with the little costume and the little pieces of makeup that I had in it. And all these girls had all these makeup cases and stuff. So I'm just like, okay, here we are. And so I ended up, well, Diana Wright, she was the entertainer at the time that was the show director at Cousins. And she said, well, you know you really won, but you ain't had no friends, so they didn't vote for you. You make sure you come back. And I said, okay, because I got second place. And so, but I was hooked because I loved entertaining. And so that's how I started. It was on a Thursday night in 1991, and I came every week. And I had two friends, and they're like, we're not coming up here every week. And so then they stopped coming. And so it was just me. I've always been a loner and always by myself. So that's how that happened.
Well, that's good to know. Didn't know that about you. So another question. What has been one of your fondest moments in your drag career, and how did that moment shape you as an entertainer, if it had any impact on you?
My fondest moment, probably when the Haynes Totally Tina contest probably was the, I think that there was a pivot and a shift in me as an entertainer and in my career. Because after that contest, people looked at me differently. People treated me differently, although I felt like I was the same person. And I think if I'm looking back, I think I looked at myself differently as well, because it was a big deal, and I didn't want to do it because I was intimidated, and that's what stands out now. It's so funny about it. I was intimidated. I didn't want to do it because I do Tina Turner as my profession, and so it's one thing for people to say, "Oh, you're the best," and I'm like, okay, but to have to enter a contest and prove that you're the best, or that you're not the best, I was intimidated by that. And one of my big sisters, Pavely Loves, she was my first big sister. She passed away in '99. She's like, "You're entering this contest." And she's like, "You are entering this contest." And it was an international contest. It was for all the Tinas around the world. And they had 200 people could enter. And they were taking the top 30. And they were going to compete head-to-head in a Tina contest. And it was very intimidating. So I made it, of course, to the finals. And only 2 drag queens made it to the finals. The rest were all like singers and dancers and, by cisgendered women. And Hot Chocolate and I were the only 2 drag queens that made it. And that was even intimidating, but and then I won the contest. And when I came back into the community, all of us, there was a different level and layer of how people treated me, and that's something I noticed that happens a lot in this community. It's like you can be the same person, but if you put a title in front of that.
You have something
put a title with it. Suddenly you're somebody. Or, I'm going to show you a level of respect now. Well, I wasn't worthy of respect two days ago.
You're a human.
And I've never really liked that. And so I try to treat people all the same. whether you just started or you've been doing it 50 years. I don't care. It's about how you treat me and how you treat yourself. That's going to determine how I interact with you. So I think that changed a lot for me.
Well, sticking to the performance area of questions, I have one more question for you. As the world of drag and pageantry has changed since your induction, what is something that you feel has changed for the worse and you would like to see a return to this generation of drag and pageantry?
Well, drag is always changing. And I think that's kind of a trick question because it's never the same for two people.
Right.
So a change for me might be how somebody else is already doing that. But just because I don't know about it doesn't mean that that's not happening. And trends, drag has always been ahead of trends as far as I've known. That's why I've always kind of been on the outside looking in, because I never really followed the trends. I've just really just been a country girl at heart, and I'm still very much like that. But I do notice that the girls that really attack drag, and that's why I don't want to call myself that, because I'm not doing what they're doing. Because I admire and respect what they're doing so well, but that's not what I'm doing. And so, and it's ever evolving. And so just because that's not like the no wearing pads and no wearing boobs and no wearing people did that back then. That's not new, but if there's Facebook and now everybody can see that there are girls that don't wear hip pads. There's girls that don't wear boobs. Well, I assure you, back in 1991, I was a girl that did not wear hip pads. To this day, I've never worn a hip pad, and I didn't wear boobs in the beginning because I'm like, well, I don't have boobs. Why would I put some on? Because to me, I was still thinking very analytical about drag. If it didn't make sense, I wasn't going to do it. And they're like, put on some blush. Well, black people don't blush like that. What are you talking about? Put on some blush. And then the girls would have the purple and the black. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. They look crazy. Then the clown white. I'm like, girl, we're in the circus. What is going on?
You sound like me.
So I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I was just like, no, I'm here to entertain. I'm not here to be in a beauty contest or a fashion show. So I've always cared more about the stage and the entertaining of it all. And I think that's always kind of come through. So I'm not one of those older girls that like, look at her, I ain't got no hips on. Ooh, girl, look at her. They all doing the same thing. I don't care. And I don't think I'm going to be the person that says what should go back to, what was this and what was that. There's one thing that I will say that has nothing to do with the aesthetic, though, and that is, now back in 1991, you had to work for anything that you got. I do see a lot of overnight successes happening. Girls that just, well, she started 2 weeks ago. How is she? What is going on here? And I'm not calling any names, but they just did the Gayest and Greatest, and the girl got nominated Best MC, and she just started her show 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. So it's not like popularity.
It's yeah. And there's always have been cliques. Don't get me wrong. There have always been cliques. And there's always been that kind of stuff going on. But now it's different. And a lot of girls don't have to put in the work to get the reward anymore. I think that's the biggest thing that I see, that I was like, okay, I had to work really hard to break through. But to this day and age, no. But that's the age we're living in. Things are faster now.
This is true. It's a lot faster.
The axis.
So shifting on over to some questions about your life.
Ooh.
You mind if we be a little intrusive?
Okay. Such as it is. Go ahead.
Well, who has been your biggest inspiration in your life when it comes to your transition?
The biggest what?
Inspiration in your life.
Inspiration? When you say inspiration, I'm
just someone who inspired you to transition in a certain way, or someone who just was there for you as a support system.
I haven't necessarily. I can't think back to anyone when I first began to transition, because all of my friends were drag queens. I didn't know any trans women when I started. I didn't have a friendship circle, because most of the, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but most of the trans girls back in the early 90s were sex workers, and they didn't like me. And I was okay with that, 'cause I'm like, hookers, ooh. But I've learned, I've evolved. But so I just like with the drag, my transition has been specifically, uniquely to me, to myself. I haven't looked to nobody helped me. Ironically, my first husband was the first person that made it okay for me to transition, because he saw that I was struggling with that. And he had that conversation with me, and that bonded us for life. Even after we divorced and went our separate ways, we remained close. Because for me, with my transition, I had to give myself permission to have it, because I knew it was something I wanted. Even at the talent night, when my friends said they dress up in the women's clothes, I was like, side-eye, like, they're going to find me out. Because back then, it wasn't something that was so prevalent. And even when I won the Tina contest, someone said, well, if you want to go into illusion work, you can't transition, because they have to be men. That's part of those illusion shows, is men transforming into these illusions. And so if you become a woman, you can't do those illusion shows, which is, people always ask why I didn't go that route. Well, that's why, because I chose my transition in my life over that. It was more important to be myself than to live an unhappy, inauthentic life.
Well, that's interesting to know. I didn't know that you couldn't.
Yeah, because at the end of the show, when they bring you back on stage, let's say my name was John Smith. It was like, and in the role of Tina Turner, Mr. John Smith.
Oh,
and
Lord.
You come out. And when you come into the casinos and the venues, you have to enter as a boy, and you have to leave as a boy. And even when I filled in for LaWanda at La Cage down in Biloxi, she gave me my first La Cage show. And that's how I knew I couldn't and wouldn't do that, because she told me, she said, dress and dry, just wear baggy clothes, because I already had boobs. So she goes, wear baggy clothes and wear a hat. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to, I mean, I did it for her, because she was competing for a pageant, and she needed me to fill in for her, to do Tina at the show for her. But I did it for her, but doing it for that month, I knew that that wasn't for me. It's like, okay, no, I can't live that way. So.
Well, since we're talking about transition, the next question is very, it could be controversy, but I feel like you can answer it.
Sure.
What are your views on black market silicone work? And have you had any? If so, what has been your experience, and what would you tell the girls who are considering taking that route?
Oh, so you mean it's going to be personal, not controversial?
But that
yeah, I did. Well, again, back in the 1990s, a lot of things weren't accessible to us in our transition. So yes, I did have the black market silicone, and I did end up having complications for it. And I have since, I had a double mastectomy to have my breasts completely removed in 2015. And then I've had reconstruction, and then in 2020, it's like Barbara Walters, 2020. In 2020, I had the silicone removed from my lower body as well. So, because there were complications from it. And I had heard a story, I don't know how true it was, but a very prominent entertainer that was trans who had a lot of silicone work, and she was stage 4 cancer. And whenever she would have a mammogram, because the silicone looks like the same thing under when you have your mammogram, that's how it looks. And so she didn't know she was sick until it was too late. She was already stage 4. And that made me go to my doctor and like, well, he goes, well, I suggest you remove the silicone. And so, and when you put it in, it doesn't stay in that one little spot. It moves around. Okay. So when they looked at my mammogram, like, yeah, you should just have a double mastectomy. And you have to understand, I was the size, my breasts were ginormous. They were huge. and not with silicone, but there was quite a bit in there. But I was just because I also had an orchiectomy, and so my breasts were really filling out, and so people were really shocked that I had the double mastectomy because my breasts were probably as famous as I was. They probably were, but so no, I wouldn't suggest getting that, especially in this day and age. It's so much more accessible to do your transition safely and legally, and yeah, I would advise against it. And I even tell my sisters who got it back when I got it, my health increased. I feel so much healthier and better not having that in my body. So, and I have had a couple of girls who've taken the same lead that I did, and they went and got theirs removed as well. So,
thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. But moving on to the next one, when it comes to love, trans women have a hard time finding genuine love interest. In your experience, what has been some hardships you have faced, if any, in your love life, and how did you overcome them?
I don't necessarily think the hardships that I faced are uniquely to my transness, in that there's just some men that aren't good men in the world. And like my first, but now this was unique. I just thought about it. The same first husband who like made it okay for me, helped me with my realizing I was going to be able to live my truth, put it that way. After I had my orchiectomy, he left me immediately because he wanted certain things, and I would no longer be able to do those certain things. And so we had that conversation before I had the surgery, because I said, well, if that's going to change us, I don't want to do that. He goes, oh, I love you, I would never. And I wasn't even at home. I was still packed in ice when I got home, and he was gone. And so that was very hard. And but I had to go right back to work, and still with stitches, and that was very hard and very painful. And we would end up getting back together like 500 times over the span of 10 years, because we truly did love each other. But when it's hard when trans women fall in love with gay men, and I do think that was ultimately what the problem was. He said he was bisexual, but I think he was gay, and he didn't necessarily want to be with a woman because he had already been married before, and so I don't think he wanted to be with a woman. And so, in that being suddenly what was in his house, in our home, the connection was there still spiritually, but the physical was completely gone. And so that changed everything. And so that was a hardship. And then meeting people that want to be with you. They say they want to be with you because, as a trans woman, but they really want to be with you because you're a drag queen and everybody knows who you are. And so they're I call them fame suckers. And so they leech onto you and they want to suck your fame. And then they lead you down a very dark path. And so that happened. So, but again, I don't necessarily equate that to my transness. He was just a bad person. I think a lot of people those people that end up detransitioning, as it were, I think it's just because they get lonely, because that is palpable and that is hard to deal with a lot of times, and a lot of people can't deal with that, and that's something they don't prepare you for when you start living authentically as your authentic spiritual self. It's like, this is going to be very lonely, and it's harder when you meet those people that love you. This man loves you, but he just cannot be there with you physically, because that is just not in his DNA for him to be attracted to you that way. That's very hard. And so, loving someone and them loving you, but you can't be with them, they don't prepare you for that. And then, so you meet these other men and they only want to be with you because it's a fetish. That's a hardship. Yes. So I don't necessarily look at those people that detransition They're like, okay, this is just a bunch of bullshit. I won't deal with it. But they're not. I don't think they're detransitioning because they don't feel that that's still who they authentically are. I think they detransition because that shit is just hard and lonely. And I've always been a loner, so it's not a problem for me.
I can identify with that one. I identify with that.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
Well, a similar situation from my a situationship I've been in for off and on for 8 years. And this was a cishet man, and never been outside this man's house with him. It was only ever, at night going by to see this happening off and on for years. And within earlier this year was we reconnected for a while because we had a span where we hadn't talked for about 2 years, and then we reconnected a while, and then it ended again. But just in that, we got into like an argument, and it was something that he ended up saying was that he's the one with the most to lose in the situation.
Wow.
And like having him say that to me, and it was almost like he was blaming me for him loving me.
Yeah.
And he was upset about his love for me because he couldn't have it in the ways that he really wanted to have it.
Right.
Well, not that he couldn't, but he wouldn't allow himself to have it. So just on that, I identify with that a lot.
Yeah. And in those situations like that, what you just described that's when our safety comes into play. And I had a situation about 4 or 5 months ago. I was waiting for a bus, and the bus was coming, so I got up to get on the bus. And there was a black guy, attractive, nice-looking black guy, waiting for the bus as well. And so the bus came, and so then the door opened, and he stood there. And so the lady looked, and she just started to drive off, and then he started banging on the door. And so I walked up, and got on the bus, and he got on the bus, and he cussed the driver out. It was a lady. And he goes, "You didn't see that lady walking up to the bus? Did you think I was going to get on the bus in front of a lady? My mother taught me to open the door for a lady and to always let a lady go first. And you saw her." He just really railed on her. And for a split second, I'm like, ooh. But then I'm like, okay, now what happens when he clocks T? I just felt very unsafe. The very person that was protecting me. So black men do show up for black women, let that be known. But when it comes to black trans women,
it's big
like,
difference.
Okay, what happens when he knows what's going on here? And heaven forbid, some queen on the bus, that's Roxanne. And then all of a sudden, oh, that was a what? Or what if the driver had clocked T? Like, well, you do know. So my life could have been. So I felt instantly unsafe, even though he was protecting me. I felt unsafe. So I felt what you were saying in that in him blaming you. It sounds like he wants to be with you, but he can't. And some men get obsessive when that happens. And if they can't have you, nobody can have you. So then your life could be in danger. So that's a hardship. So like I said, it goes back to, it can be a very lonely life. And people have to be prepared for that.
And this is true. I definitely feel the whole conversation. That was a good one.
So you talked about safety. I kind of want to jump to something. So the question I want to ask you is personal.
Surprise.
It's personal. As a woman who has seen the world and has experienced life, when do you have time for intimacy, and what does that look like? Because I know, like you just said, the safety piece does come up a lot. So what is love like as a goddess? Because I look at you as a goddess.
Oh, well, thank you. It doesn't, I practically, well, I might as well say I'm celibate at this point. I protect my emotional state. I don't allow myself to get into those type of situations where I know the outcome. So why even begin to go down that road? I know when someone's looking at me as a fetish. I know when someone's just playing games, because that happens to us as well. we meet these gay guys in the bars, and they like, oh, I want to. And then they just want to be around us, but they don't really want to be with us.
Yeah.
That happens, and I've seen that happen to several girls. I was just sitting there watching it happen. I watched a girl with a guy, and he was a very masculine presenting guy, but I could tell he was gay. And so they were all there together, all hugged up. And then as I'm leaving, they're outside having this big argument because he goes, well, I'm never having sex with you. I'm not going to your house. And it was just became a thing. And I'm just standing there like, but you've been all canoodling with her all evening. You led this lady on. And it was just so off-putting. But that happens so much. And so it's like, I just don't have time for it. I'm too old and I'm too whatever to deal with any of that. I'm very spiritual. I think when the right person comes, I'll know. So I don't date. I don't have sex. I don't hook up. I don't do anything.
It's too much going on.
I just have a dog. And
Happy belated birthday. I know that you said her birthday.
Well, yes, Callie's birthday was in August. She's crazy. But no, I don't, and I don't miss it. I'm not lonely. I have been lonely, but I have learned to be alone. And a girl that is okay with being alone is a very dangerous woman.
Silent snaps. Okay, let's see. So the next question, we want to do a little switch of gears and talk a little bit about the politics going on. So with the the possible historic win of future, fingers crossed, President Kamala Harris becoming the first black woman president. What are your thoughts on the new? What are your thoughts on the new playing field of politics, and the effects it can have on the trans community?
I'm very excited at the prospect of having a female president, leader of the free world. I think it's way past due. I'm still nervous, and I don't want to say anything controversial, but you know, we know the whites. So want to see what they're really going to do.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to do right this time. I think with a woman. I was thinking this the other day. It's very interesting how they keep former President Trump keeps trying to introduce trans into the diaspora of politics, and it's not, the bait isn't taking for some odd reason, but I don't necessarily hear the word trans being said this election cycle from the Democratic side either. I have noticed that. It's all one, it's LGBT, it's never trans. We have to protect, they're not necessarily speaking about protecting trans rights and trans women. There's love who you love. Well, that has absolutely nothing to do with my identity. Stop saying that. So that's a red flag to me with the Democratic Party. It's like, well, you should be able to love who you love. What does that have to do with my identity?
Yeah.
Because this is about not who I go to bed with, but who I go to bed as. So it's weird that you're wording it that way. We have to protect our LGBT community and let them love who they want to love. That's not has nothing to do with me being a trans woman. So, but I haven't heard the word trans. Now, say what you want to say about Joe Biden. He said we have to protect trans people when he was running for president. So I've noticed that. And I remember I was watching the Don Lemon show, and he was talking with Flame Monroe, and they was like, the trans people need to just be quiet right now. And I didn't like that. And that didn't sit right with me. So I feel like trans people are being put to the side. Like, we got you, just be quiet, because we don't want to scare these people. We don't want the independent voters to get the hair up on their necks. We don't want to upset the Republicans that might come over and vote for Kamala Harris. We don't want to upset, there's so many people they don't want to upset with the trans people, because start listening. You're not going to hear the word trans come out of Kamala Harris's mouth. You're not going to hear it come out of any of our surrogates' mouth. They're not going to say the word trans. They're going to say LGBT and love who you want to love. To me, that's not talking about me. And I don't like the fact that they keep saying that, I'm glad they've gone away from identity politics because the trans thing, I was on Bill Maher's show, because the trans issue was going to really tank this campaign. And so I'm like, why is trans an identity, but abortion, people needing an abortion, that's not an identity? No, this is all of politics is identity. You worry about the black vote, that's an identity. You're about the suburban moms, that's an identity. So don't tell me that my identity as a trans woman is not something that is just as valuable and important as someone needing an abortion. That's your issue, that is your right. I don't have a uterus, and I'm okay with not having a uterus. So I don't feel like abortion is necessarily my topic to talk about, because I'm not pregnant, I'm not getting anyone pregnant, no one I know is getting pregnant. That is not, but I want you to have that right to be able to have an abortion if you want one. And so if I can think that about you and not think that's gonna be a problem, why can't you think that about me? Because I assure you, my trans life is as important as your right to have an abortion. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening. So yes, I'm excited about a female president. Yes, I'm excited about turning the page on the whole MAGA cult. I'm excited about all of that being in our rear view. But what happens with us, I still think that's in the air, and I still think that's something that we're definitely gonna have to keep our eye on, because I don't think this is about us.
I definitely feel you on that. I completely agree with everything that you said, and I fully believe that we as a community, as trans people, need to gather and use our voice as all of our voices together, and speak out and push back and stop allowing outside sources to paint our pictures.
Yes.
So that's what this is for. That's what all this is about, is for us to be able to show people, no, that's not me.
That's not what it is.
This is me. That's her. That's him. That's them. That everybody is different, and everybody's transition is different. So,
right, we're not a monolith, and I think that has a lot to do with, I think, why it is the way it is and where we are. Because whereas we're not a monolith, we do have to get on the same page, though. It can be a book with different pages, but it still has to be the same book. And so I don't know how we get there, though, because I don't know. There's some things that I'm like, yeah, I don't get that. I'm not with that. I don't agree with that. So I don't know. I don't know how we get there, but we have to. I agree with you. We have to get there in order to make sure that our voices are being heard and that our votes matter.
Definitely the votes. Go vote. Please go vote.
Yes.
So you said earlier we did dive into some of your personal information, and you talked about things in healthcare. So still in the context of politics, my question for you is, Republican-led state legislators are considering a new round of bills restricting medical care for transgender youth and in some cases adults. Being that children cannot undergo medical transition, only a social transition, in what ways do you think we as a community need to go about changing this narrative?
Well, I think, just like I said, about 2 weeks ago, former President Trump said they're having transgender operations at school.
Like, what?
Yeah, he said that. And they laughed at him. They're like, no, you sound crazy. And it was very dismissed. It was swatted away. It was people dismissed it. And so they didn't take the bait. They didn't go down the trans, talking about trans. They totally changed the subject. That's how I noticed. I'm like, they're not talking about us. Mm-hmm. Even when they bring us up, they're not talking about us. And because they want to use it as a scare. They want to scare, like, the kids are going to have surgeries. They're going to go to school and have surgeries and things. And so where I'm at with the whole youth and the transitioning and things, I do think, so initially I didn't necessarily agree with it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, they're transitioning in school, so even socially, not medically, like, so what is going on here? Is this a thing? Knowing that I remember that I felt that when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I've always known that I was the girl. I've always known that, but I wasn't going to go to school and do all that. But that was me. That was my generation. That was the 70s. And so, and then I was getting the Monica K. Roberts Award by Sylvia. The mayor was presenting me with an award. And I was in the restroom, and I turned around from washing my hands, and there was a lady with her daughter, and who was trans. And so that was my first time meeting a trans youth. And it just totally changed my mind. It totally changed my heart. It changed, and I'm like, wow, this is a thing. But how beautiful would it have been for me to have lived in my authentic truth at that young age? Yeah. You know? And so I'm like, okay, so I get it. But that's the whole thing. People have to be exposed to it to get it. And so I think there needs to be some type of visibility and I don't know if this would be a forum for you to sit with some trans youth and talk to some young people and their parents. And I think that would be a great episode. But I think there needs to be more visibility so people can see it. Because right now, they're just thinking about it just the same way I was. I'm like, what does that look like? No, they shouldn't be doing that. And I also think, now this might be controversial, but I think, because I remember all the little boys that used to call me a little girl at school and flirt with me and do all the things of the things. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of these parents don't want their little boys to be flirting with no little girls in elementary school. Like, no, you're not going to go with Tracy. No, you're not doing it.
It don't make no difference because they can sense the energy.
That's what I'm saying.
They can sense the energy.
So if Tracy suddenly has pigtails on her skirt, it might be like, you ain't going to be confusing my child. No, I don't want none of that. So I really think that's where the parents' knee-jerk reaction is coming from. They're like, okay, that's fine for your child, but your child ain't going to be seducing my child under the monkey bars.
Okay.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. I really do. And I think about all the boys in high school that was trying to have sex with me, and they're like, you had a vagina, I would X, Y, Z. I'm like, oh. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. It's not that they don't want the kids to transition. They don't want their kids to be attracted to those kids transition. Right. I don't think nobody's ever spoke about that. I think that's a real thing.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about it.
Okay.
But I'm very outspoken. I sit at home with my dog and think things. All the time.
I'm going to sit at home with the dog and think things.
She helps me think. She agrees with everything I say.
She a Virgo too.
See?
The dog?
Yes. You know, I know things.
So you with the dog or she a Virgo?
I'm
Callie's a Virgo.
Yes, I'm Team Callie.
Okay, well, moving on to some more questions, to some hot topic questions. Okay. The LGBT community is known or claims to be a space of open-mindedness and freedom to be one's true self, but with the case of people like Billy Porter, a lot of community members have a negative view on him when it comes to his appearance. Yes. Why do you think some folks in community are so at odds with his image?
That's just the culture. Mm-hmm. It's just the culture. And I get so tired of jumping on those posts defending Billy Porter, whom I've never met, and I just find it so distasteful and disgusting, the things that people say. And this is someone that should be upheld in our community. Mm-hmm. He's practically an EGOT. I think if he gets an Oscar, he'll be an EGOT. Mm-hmm. And you're going to sit here and talk about how he looks, and you're talking about how he looks at the White House. Hello, he's at the White House.
Yeah.
You're going to the negative, and there's so many negative people in this community that it's popular and it's fun to pull people down and to be so negative and not to use the Kamala Harris talking point, but it's not about not bringing somebody down, it's about lifting them up. And Billy Porter has been going through a lot personally. He went through a divorce. He went through a financial situation during the strike. He's gone through quite a bit, and the fact that he's still able to hold his head up and show up as his authentic self in his best way. Why can't we, especially as a black community, why can't we support that? Not as a gay community, not as a trans LGBT community, but just as a black people. Why not we lift our people up? Because I assure you, in other racial groups, they have people that look the fool too. But you don't see them pulling that person down. They don't. But we, for some odd reason, there's currency in that, because now people are coming to your post and they're clicking on it and they're liking it, and you're seeing the likes go up and you see the views go up, and that becomes almost a reward in itself. And I've always just jumped on every post that I see, and I'm like, excuse me, what's going on here? Because I don't like that. I think it's hideous.
I've always found it kind of ironic, especially when, as a community, as a whole, we're saying to the outer communities to allow us to be ourselves, and then you flip that mirror back on somebody else and telling them how to show up.
You want them to show up.
Exactly.
Like now, and I assure you, you don't always show up the way somebody wants you to show up. But people give you grace. Why can't you give that to somebody else?
This is true. Where is the grace? Where is the grace?
Where is the grace?
Where is the grace?
Where is the grace?
That's cute too.
It is. Where is the grace? Hashtag, where is the grace?
So I have, I feel like, Ma, you should ask that question because I want to ask Roxanne something. Well, I'm going to ask.
Really?
You want me to go first?
Here?
You can ask that question last. And I want to ask Roxanne because, Roxanne, you participated in our very first high tea turnabout brunch show. And
I was the host.
You were, but you were also
a mother.
What was that experience like for you? So I never ate.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. Whitney was so much fun.
Whitney Winters.
Whitney was very serious and very dedicated. And I'm like, okay, girl, listen. I'm not a drag mother from real life, so calm all that down. And so she was, but I enjoyed it though. I really did. I've always liked to mentor and with people and things like that. So it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely participate again. It was fun.
Love that.
Yes,
it was good to know.
I definitely hope y'all make it an annual thing.
It is.
It was very successful. I saw all that money y'all made.
We went back into the community. We are going to do it again.
Yay!
And should we tell her?
Is this hot?
I guess we can tell her. Well, for the next one, you are going to be our honoree.
Yes.
Oh, what?
Yes. So it was Tommy Ross first, and I was just like, we were talking, and it was just like, it's just so fitting.
Oh, I'm very honored
for you to be the next honoree.
Y'all surprising me.
Yeah, we had to do it on our show.
It's about giving the flowers back.
Right.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. I'm very honored. Thank you.
Yeah, take your bouquet.
Yeah. You've done a lot for the community, and we want the title holders to be very prestigious in like leading in the message that we're trying to give, because we are about community, and I know you are. So when we talked, it was just like, yeah, it should be right.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm speechless. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm very shocked.
You're great.
Yes, very much so.
How dare y'all surprise me?
Surprise.
Surprise. Surprise.
There's your grace.
It's not great.
Okay, so moving on to the next question, and kind of closing out a little bit. When it comes to pop culture, there has been an influx of trans people in the spotlight, such as Tokyo Styles with her new show, T.S. Madison with the empire she has built, and also even more controversial girls such as Sydney Starr with her new show with Ray J. in your opinion, how has this visibility impacted the community as a whole in a positive and in a negative way?
Okay, I can't say that I know that much about Sydney Star or Tokyo Styles. I do enjoy T.S. Madison, and I think T.S. Madison is very important because I've been someone that watched her from the beginning, and I have seen such an evolution, and I think that's where her fan base comes from, and I think that's been important for mainstream people to see that evolution of, because we're not a monolith, and because she's held very specific beliefs about gay and trans, etc., and has educated herself and evolved, and she expresses that and she shares that, and a lot of her audience, which is heterosexual, they have evolved their way of thinking through that as well. So the visibility, I think, as long as it's positive, like that of a T.S. Madison, I think it's great. I think there should be more. I think hopefully we get to a day where it's no big deal. It's just so-and-so has a show. It's just, so-and-so's on the radio, or it's just normal. I really wish, and my hope and pray and wish for us as a people is that we would just be people, and that we wouldn't be
The trans don't have to come up.
Trans this or the trans that, and she's just that. And I want that for black people too. Because Neil Armstrong isn't known as the first white man on the moon. He's just known as the first man on the moon. And I want that for us as well. It's like, we are just people. And I think as long as we have people like T.S. Madison, and hopefully the other two ladies that you said, I'm not familiar with them, but hopefully they're putting their best foot forward and leading with that as well. Hopefully.
I kind of, for my idea, more my thought on it is even with girls like Sydney Star, she's very controversial, but
Now,
that
what
shows
is she known for? Is she a singer?
Chingy. She's known for a situation with a rapper.
Oh,
But
so she's a rapper.
no, she's not a rapper. But there was a situation happened a while back where she took a picture with a rapper, and then it got out that she was supposedly did something with the rapper, but didn't.
It was a situation where outing someone or.
Yeah, but nothing happened with
But it
him.
okay, well then she shouldn't have a show.
But
Cut her show off. No, okay, change my statement. Not her. What's the other girl doing?
Tokyo Styles is she's a hairdresser, so she works with people like Cardi B. She's a celebrity hairstylist.
Okay, yeah, she can stay. Her and T.S. Madison can stay. That other girl gotta go somewhere.
But I was gonna
Because
say
people think that about all of us.
this is true.
No.
Just
No.
perpetrating norms.
Well, first of all, I think trans women should stop sleeping with people that wouldn't want to be seen with you anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have to out you. They saw us together at the mall. So who's getting outed? If I can't go to the mall with you and I can't go to your family reunion, we ain't got nothing to talk about.
That'll mess up my mental health.
But anybody's.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about it. Even back in the 70s, when I was growing up, it's like white boys would date black girls in secret. So, I mean, it's not new. It's not new and specific to trans women. And just same as with back then, some black women would be murdered by white men because they didn't want their families to find out. This is not necessarily uniquely specific to trans women, which is why I don't understand why more women don't share and understand where we're coming from. It's like, this is a shared experience that we all have in different ways. So, but I remember that back in the day, it was a scandal. Yeah, if a black person, white person, ooh. And so now I guess it's trans, but A sudden movements, man. I had to get.
Well, Roxanne, I want to thank you for being a part.
Well, thank you for having me. That was painless.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were say painful.
No, I'm an open book, and clearly, as she will tell you, I like to talk. So.
Yes, and I do appreciate you. Like you gave this episode, a lot of food for thought.
I
And
hope.
I know the viewers, the storytellers, are like light bulbs are just going.
Oh, I
off.
hope so.
So, like, we'll probably be bringing you back.
Yay.
Because I know we're going to get a lot of questions. So, if y'all have questions, please leave them in the comments. This is Roxanne.
Which one's my camera?
This is your over here.
Hey, y'all.
We're sitting here with the legend Roxanne. This is,
Maya Wesley.
and I am Reggie, the feminine gent. You have just witnessed episode 2 of High Tea. Come brew with us, the podcast.
Now brew that.
Period.
Where's the
Like and
grace?
subscribe. Where's the grace?
Thank y'all for having me.
Where is the grace?
Where is the grace?
Come and see
Ooh,
about
where's the beef back in the
Come and see about me.
Oh, you-
Come